is a big day for President Trump because there's a couple big updates, some of which dovetail directly off of the conversation we had yesterday, where Jim Jordan had presented the investigation because they believe the documents that they claimed were mishandled were then once again mishandled by the people who are alleging the mishandling. Of course, that's what happened, and guess what it actually did? It provided a pretty significant delay of what it looks like is going to happen in that case. There's also an update in the Fani Willis situation, because that case, another one that feels like it's endless and never ends. Well, guess what? There's an update to both of those.
In Georgia, the appeals court has accepted his application for an interlocutory appeal. Now, that means it's an appeal not after the final judgment in a case, which you automatically have the right to appeal. It's appealing something within a case that is ongoing. So you're having to ask almost special permission of the higher court if they'll hear an appeal before the case is resolved. They granted that. He has 10 days to file notice of appeal now, go through those motions, and then get a brief in on his appeal. So the situation with Fani Willis being on that case, still very much up in the air.
That, as well as another situation in the Trump world. This, to me, is the one that is maybe even more fascinating, because the Fani Willis one, it's scandalous. It's, it's a big story, but there's obviously a lot going on there. This one is directly tied to what we talked about yesterday.
That's right. So it's the case with the classified documents was originally supposed to begin May 20th. Everyone knew that wasn't going to happen as all these motions and issues kept coming up, but the judge had still not set a new trial date. Well, yesterday, and this comes on the heels after Jack Smith admitted in his filing over the weekend that, maybe they hadn't kept as good of records with the evidence as they thought they should have. She has taken out the order of a May 20th start date of that trial and has not set a new one, meaning that case is indefinitely on hold while they go through what she calls a myriad of interconnected pretrial issues.
Yeah, you heard that right. The two big issues happening this morning related to President Trump in court, which again, feels like this is a repeat. Feels like this is ad nauseum. We've heard this so many times. When these guys told me what they wanted to do this morning for our topic, I rolled my eyes and said, do we have to do this again? But yes, because there are two big breaking news items out of this, which is, first, let's start with the Fani Willis situation. That's the one I know a lot of you want to hear. But really, the other one related to the documents we talked about yesterday, that's the work, that we get involved in. We're involved in both, but that is to me the one that's more interesting, because it's not about a scandal that then is causing a chaotic situation. The documents is specifically about what's happening legally and things that have happened and unfolded that way. So let's start, though, with the Fani Willis situation. Why don't we just start with an update of what's going on? And Harry, you can kind of give people a breakdown on this, because at this situation, essentially the court has granted and said, yes, we at least are going to now consider the fact that she should not be on this.
I think if you look at the central case affecting Fani Willis, I think it's clear beyond question that there was indeed a conflict of interest between her and the special prosecutor with whom she had a relationship. The lower court judge, Judge McAfee, declined to disqualify Fani Willis, but he allowed Donald Trump and the other defendants to bring an appeal to the Georgia Court of Appeals, which has now been granted. So this means they will hear the case. It also means that Fani Willis could indeed still be disqualified, and it's possible that the case could be taken away from the Fulton County prosecutor, given to another prosecutor, and then that prosecutor could decide to dismiss the case. So it's a very important decision. It's a big win for Donald Trump and his fellow defendants. And I think we will have to see what the Georgia Court of Appeals does with it.
If you appeal a final judgment, like you have been convicted, right, that you automatically have the right to appeal. Interlocutory appeal means it's something within the case, and therefore it's not a given that you can even appeal it.
Of course, if it's President Trump, there's a lot of lawsuits going on. There's a lot of court cases happening. We have to keep them all straight in our heads, and sometimes it's hard because there's so many happening. So much so, by the way, that I think they become less and less impactful, less and less meaningful. Because if you hear the same story every day, eventually, though they are still legally very significant, I want to make sure people understand that. Like, they are alleging things that could get you thrown in jail. But in terms of the public perception, I think they become less and less powerful. Now, yesterday we reported the situation where Jim Jordan said, hey, it appears that the documents that you claim to be mishandled, the classified documents being kept in Mar-a-Lago, were in fact mishandled by the people collecting them. Who knew if anything was going to come from that? I got some responses to that broadcast yesterday and said, this is Jim Jordan just puffing his chest. Nothing is going to happen. You need to tell him to take action. And of course, because I said, there's good people. There are people like Jim Jordan who are out there. But no, action actually did happen very rapidly. And it appears to be that's at least part of the reason why that situation, the Mar-a-Lago document situation, may be pushed on well beyond potentially the 2024 election.
In part because there are a ton of pretrial motions and pretrial issues that must be decided. Jack Smith essentially charged President Trump with doing what? Mishandling classified documents. And then the Department of Justice, under the control of Jack Smith, then tampered with or mishandled those documents himself.
Yep.
And so you cannot make it up. I mean, it is a brilliant illustration, I believe, of Jack Smith's willingness to overcharge other individuals for conduct that his office is arguably guilty of. In addition to which, it's possible that Jack Smith did something else, that he tampered with a witness by essentially promising to help the witness's lawyer attain a federal judgeship. I think that has yet to be decided in terms of the implications.
This kind of bothers me a little bit. It's sure the headlines will show up, like if you're looking at top news sources, but that is not the number one, it's not even a top 10 story probably happening across the country right now. The Fani Willis one, yeah, sure, that's making some attention, but again, because it's scandalous, because I think people, I'm sure they see ratings pop for that. You have the other situation, obviously the protests and all that happening, but this one, I didn't see many other people talking about, and it's a pretty devastating blow, I think, to that case. And to me, it's maybe the one time where they go, okay, you know what? We saw what happened with President Biden, that he also had. Look, let's say you think all of it's true, that President Trump had documents he shouldn't have had. Well, then we know for sure President Biden also had documents he shouldn't have had. What's clear is, however these documents are being transported, not necessarily the easiest, the best way, and probably not the most 2024 way in American society right now. Probably need to figure out a little safer way to do this, but also that you can't be on one side of the political spectrum. It's not that kind of issue. This is happening across the board. And maybe when you see this kind of impropriety happening, that you can just say, okay, this case, we're going to pump it so far into the future, into 2025, either President Trump will be the president, therefore this case is pretty much null and void, or he loses and we'll deal with it then.